evening, I'm Hiba Ahmed and this is an edition of news from Dalsan TV English broadcast with the latest news from Somalia and across the world. And these are some of our top news headlines. Somali president says Al-Shabaab cannot be defeated militarily. Government leading three-front war crisis in Somalia. IRC warns of catastrophic hunger amid drought and conflict in 2023. And 28 militants killed in Juhai, a village in Middle Shabelle region. Welcome to the broadcast. Somalia's President Hassan Sheikh Mohamud has said the Al-Qaeda allied militia group Al-Shabaab cannot be defeated militarily, weeks after the government launched an offensive against the insurgents. Speaking at the US-Africa Summit, President Hassan Sheikh told the forum that his government had declared militaristic, economic and ideological war against the militants.
I lost the elections in early 2017 and I've been out for 5 years. Throughout that 5 years I have been trying to reflect, of course not me only, but as a team, my political party, my team, the intellectuals and the groups. So we come to the conclusion that unless we change the mindset of our community, unless we raise the awareness of our community, that this cascading negative effects will continue unless they... So we started formula. Shabab cannot be, or terrorists anywhere they are, cannot be defeated militarily only. Military is a very important component for their defeat. But in the case of Somalia, we decided there are two other important factors or variables that has to be added into the equation, which is ideological war. Shabab we have in Somalia is a faith-based organization. That's what they claim, hiding themselves in Islam, which is not true. So we decided to establish a campaign that we make our people understand these are not, what they are propagating is not Islam and has nothing to do with Islam. They are a group of mafia covered themselves with a blanket of Islam. So the responsibility of the state and the elite group was to uncover this so that the people can see these are not. So that's one area that we started and organized the community. The other way was economic. They were collecting a huge amount of revenue from the local people. Closing those tabs of the financial resources was another target. So this three-front war is what's going on in Somalia. And so far, for the last 5 months, what we are receiving is a success. It's not yet complete, but it's a success that motivated the people, and it has created a cascading effect and sense among the society. Those who are not liberated yet, even they are saying now, you see, that party is there and they have liberated themselves. We have to do the same. So this is what is more important now, mobilizing the society. And I have been telling my colleagues today that engaging the society and the community is what makes the terrorists like a fish that run out of water. They cannot exist without the community. And if the community stands up, they have no choice but to run away. And until today, they are running away.
A new offensive military operation conducted by Somali security forces has gained control of new areas that fall under the administration at the nearby district, according to the Somali government. 28 militants were killed during the operation to flush out the group from the area and liberate it from the hands of the militants. At least 28 Al-Shabaab militants were killed and several others wounded in a fresh operation in Somalia's Middle Shabelle region on Wednesday, Somali authorities said. The operation in the Juhai rural area under Aden Yabal town was conducted by the Somali army backed by local clan militia forces, according to the statement from the government. Mogadishu said in a statement, government forces have targeted the militants at a place they were regrouping in preparation for an offensive against bases of our forces. On Wednesday, Prime Minister Hamza Abdi Bare paid a visit to Aden Yebal, a recently liberated town in the Middle Shabelle region. Prime Minister Hamza and his delegation met with Hirshabelle leaders, government forces leaders, and residents to discuss rebuilding the town's infrastructure and ensuring its security. He credited government forces and locals for making his visit possible. Last week, Somali forces and allied militias pushed Al-Shabaab fighters out of a strategic town in central Somalia that the Islamist group has controlled for 6 years. Aden Yebal, which is about 245 kilometers north of Mogadishu, was the main town in Middle Shabelle region controlled by Al-Shabaab since 2016. Despite losing the control of many areas in the hands of Somali forces backed by Mawisley clan militia in the past months, the group is capable of carrying attacks on military barracks, government, and hotels. The government is engaged in an all-out war against the Al-Shabaab extremists. The new strategy, in place since July, has already led to some gains in 2 regions in central Somalia. Since 2007, that the Al-Qaeda-affiliated group has been fighting the government and trying to establish Islamic law in the country. The new strategy unveiled by new President Hassan Sheikh Mohamud seeks to combine military operations with ideological and economic measures. On the military front, since September, the government has engaged the army and is also supporting clan militias in the fight against extremists. On the ground, Al-Shabaab fighters have been carrying out a campaign of attacks against civilian targets in towns. At the end of October, Somalia saw its deadliest attack since 2017. 121 were people killed and 333 injured in a double-car bombing in the capital, Mogadishu. Today, the International Rescue Committee, IRC, released its annual emergency watch list, highlighting the 20 countries most at risk of deteriorating humanitarian crisis in 2023. This year, Somalia, Ethiopia, and Afghanistan top the watch list as East Africa faces the worst drought decades and economic turmoil continues to compound needs in Afghanistan.
For the first time ever, Somalia is pushed to the top of the International Rescue Committee's emergency watch list for the coming year, as a devastating drought coupled with the effects of 3 decades of conflict have created a catastrophic food crisis. Somalia is in the midst of the 5th consecutive failed rainy season. By mid-2023, over 8 million people, nearly half of the population, will be living through crisis levels of food insecurity as the country faces an impending famine. According to ICRC in Somalia, over 200,000 people are facing a catastrophic levels of food insecurity, the most severe designation there. People are starving to death each day, and they are in physical pain from hunger. Their bodies cannot fight off diseases like diarrhea, measles, or malaria, with children often dying at the twice rate of adults. Human-caused climate change has increased the frequency and severity of drought. Decades of conflict have significantly eroded the country's institutions, and the combined damage to Somalia's domestic food production have made the country dangerously reliant on imported grains, especially from Ukraine and Russia. While drought occurs periodically in East Africa, human-caused climate change likely explains the duration and the severity of the current crisis, which has devastated crop production and made it nearly impossible for herders to find food for their animals. ICRC says in just 1 year, the number of people in Somalia facing the highest levels of extreme hunger has increased by 91%. With poor rains forecast to persist into 2023, even more Somalis will be unable to access enough food. Many will be forced to leave their homes to seek humanitarian assistance in urban centers or across the border in Kenya and Ethiopia, according to the International Rescue Committee. Already at the end of 2022, 3 million people were internally displaced and at least 20,000 Somalis had crossed to neighboring Kenya. Year-on-year underfunding of the humanitarian response in Somalia has significantly hindered the ability of humanitarian actors to fully respond to urgent needs. The UN's 2022 humanitarian response plan is only 55% funded, approximately $1 billion short. Sectors critical to an effective response to the crisis, particularly health, water, sanitation, and hygiene, are highly underfunded, with only 60% and 28% respectively being available resources.
Interstate wars, terrorism, divided collective security, and peacekeeping limitations remain the same challenges facing multilateralism as when the UN was founded 76 years ago, Secretary General Antonio Guterres told the Security Council on Wednesday. Pointing to Common Agenda Report, a blueprint for global cooperation and reinvigorated multilateralism, he attested that
we are still grappling with many of the same challenges we have faced for 76 years. Interstate wars, limits to our peacekeeping ability, terrorism, and a divided collective security system. And at the same time, conflict has evolved dramatically. We have seen fundamental changes in how it's fought, by whom, and where. Many elements of modern life are weaponized: cyberspace, supply chains, migration, information, trade and financial services, and investments. Frameworks for global cooperation have not kept pace with this evolution.
Rule 37 of the Council's provision.
The new agenda for peace will recognize the links between many forms of vulnerability, human rights, state fragility, and the outbreak of conflict. It's our opportunity to take stock and to change course. Because business as usual does not mean things will stay the same. In a world where the only certainty is uncertainty, it means things will almost certainly get far worse.
the 54-member UN Economic and Social Council on Wednesday adopted a resolution to remove Iran from Commission on the Status of Women for the remainder of its 4-year term ending in 2026. The development comes in the wake of the country's brutal crackdown on protests calling for justice for Mahsa Amini, the 22-year-old woman who died in police custody in September. The CSW meets annually in March at UN headquarters in New York and is described as the biggest gathering on gender equality advocate in the world. The United States introduced the resolution, which received 28 votes in favor and 8 against, with 16 countries abstaining.
These women and activists have appealed to us, the United Nations, for support. They made their request to us loud and clear: remove Iran from the Commission on the Status of Women. The reason why is straightforward. The Commission is the premier UN body for promoting gender equality and empowering women. It cannot do its important work if it's being undermined from within. Iran's membership at this moment is an ugly stain on the Commission's credibility. Today, we have an opportunity to do something that is clearly the right thing to do. We can act in this moment to support women. We can act in direct response to our constituents, the global community of women. The Iranian government wants nothing more than to wiggle its way out of this vote, to use misinformation and procedural tricks to obscure the truth and avoid accountability. I urge you to keep this simple. We have Iranian women and activists here in the room with us right now. Let's do right by them. Let's do right by women and girls around the world. Let's vote to remove Iran from the Commission on the Status of Women. Let's do this for women, for life, and for freedom.
It is not at all unexpected that the United States is taking such unlawful action against Iran, given its long-standing hostility towards the Iranian people. But if carried out, it would be exceedingly dangerous to the UN system integrity. The Islamic Republic of Iran categorically rejected and strongly condemns the draft resolution and kindly urges ECOSOC members to vote against it. Thank you.
And those are some of our top stories for this hour. This is Dalsan TV English broadcast with me, Hibaq Ahmed. Till we meet again, enjoy the rest of your viewing.